It has been over a year from my previous Star Citizen cockpit tour, and with some major changes, like the big curved screen here, I think it's time for another one. So, this is my completely insane Star Citizen cockpit, because there is no overkill for Star Citizen. And before you get all excited, I use this setup for other games too. There's a link in the description to my DCS setup. But I would still call Star Citizen my main game, and it's what got me started with the whole cockpit building stuff. Also, I can use my PC as a normal desktop PC too, like for editing this video. And if you're new to Star Citizen, don't forget to use a referral code to get some extra credits at the start. Mine's at the description. I often get asked why to spend so much time and money on building something like this. And the answer is simple. I enjoy building stuff like this. I also tend to get carried away with stuff, and after my first desktop-based setup, I built my actual cockpit from cheap lumber. This build project ended up costing me a few €100, but I learned a lot when building my previous setup, and as I said, I enjoy building this stuff. So I built the next iteration from 21mm plywood. This build ended up costing me about €800 in plywood. It's more expensive, and I used more electric components. Thinner plywood would have sufficed, but I first planned the cockpit for 22mm MDF and couldn't be arsed to make any bigger changes in the plans. There's a link to the build video and to my plans that you can download for free in the description. And I haven't calculated the total cost of peripherals like controllers, since there's a lot of stuff I've picked up secondhand along the way, and I'm not going to. But what enabled me to progress with my build from the 3-screen setup was the room extension I built. This is not just for the cockpit, but I use it as my home office. It allowed me to cut open the cockpit room's door and use the space much better. So let's start the tour with the elephant in the room, the screen. This is something I've wanted ever since I saw the Warthog project. I decided to go with 180 degrees since any larger wouldn't be beneficial with most of the games outside basically DCS. And also since 4K ultrashoto projectors are expensive. This was the most expensive part of my project and ended up costing me total about €4,000, including the projectors, the screen, the paints and so on. I'm using two Optima UHD 35 STXs here just because they were the cheapest 4K projectors I could make the setup work with. I built a screen frame in my basement and then assembled and painted it in this room. There's also a separate video available of the whole build project. The radius of the screen is 1.3 meters and the height is so that I basically have two 16:9 screens side by side. First I painted the screen with a DIY mix called Black Widow, but then I was approached by a company called Smarter Surfaces and did a repainting video with their ultra high contrast paint. And I have to say the difference in the contrast was considerable. The image from the projectors can't be displayed on the curved surface as is. Instead, the image is warped with the software called Immersive Display Pro. It's naturally not as sharp as you would get with big 4K displays, but I like the immersion of this option. And if you wonder why I'm not using VR, I also have a video about that. Link in the description. As I mentioned before, the cockpit was designed and built by me, and I have the plans available for download and lots of build videos on this channel. It consists of few separate parts that I can dismantle for maintenance if necessary. The main feature of this cockpit is modularity. I can switch the controllers and the dashboard overlay screen for different games. The current chair is Next Level Racing's Flight Seat Pro. They actually sent me their whole Flight Pro setup to try out, and I decided to keep the chair in my setup. It required some light modifications to fit in my setup though. Most important feature for me is the ability to swap around the center mounted joystick. The cockpit's lighting is powered by an old PC power supply. I used the PSQ breakout board to get the 12-volt power and run it to this control panel that I use to control lighting. I currently have one circuit for general cockpit lighting, one for background lighting for modular panels, and one background lighting for permanent panels. For Star Citizen, I mostly use Whirlpool controllers for hoses, aka hands-on stick and stick setup. This allows me to have control of all 6 axes you have available in space. The right-hand joystick controls pitch and roll, and the Thrustmaster TPR pedals control yaw. While not the most competitive setup for space games, this is what I enjoy the most. For my right hand, I'm using Whirlpool Constellation Alpha with WarBRD base and extensions. I really wouldn't recommend the WarBRD base for the extensions, but this is what I got now and I can live with it. My left hand joystick controls the movement to all directions, forward and backward, left and right, and up and down. The angled adapter makes it feel more natural, and I use the twist axis for up and down movement. The joystick is already discontinued Whirlpool Constellation Delta with Z-axis adapter. The older Whirlpool Mongoose CM throttle is there as an extra, and I can use it when I'm traveling longer distances. On the left side I also have Whirlpool control panel number 2 and on the right control panel number 1. These are flush mounted with 3D printed trims that also come off, and there's also a Stream Deck mounted on the left side. DIY panels like this StarStation Power Control panel are designed and built by me. I designed them with Fusion 360 and 3D print them in white PLA. Then paint them black and engrave the markings with a laser engraver so the markings are visible when the lights are on. Okay, and since I can't use this dashboard screen to display gauges or MFDs in StarStation like I would in games like DCS or Flight Simulator 2020, it's quite useless here. But I happen to have this smaller touchscreen, so I ended up building this overlay that I use with Game Class. There's also affiliate link in the description if you're interested in trying it out. It works best with tablets and even phones, but I'm running it through external PC and browser here. I also still need head tracking for stuff like dogfighting. I previously had TrackIR 5, but currently using Tobii Eye Tracker 5. It works well with my setup, and it's nice to get rid of the head strap. There's also affiliate link for Tobii in the description if you're interested in checking it out. One of the frequent questions I get is how I move around on FPS mode, and I actually have few solutions available for me. I can swivel in my mouse and keyboard, use the Razer Tartarus V2, a trackball, and even a controller for some basic movements like getting into my ship. And I also recently did a video of me playing Helldivers 2 with my setup, though for games like that I usually stick to my desktop setup. I think this covers most important parts of my StarStation setup. If you want to see the setup in action or want to see what build projects I come up with in the future, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching and hope to see you next time.